Welcome to Blue Talks.
They call me Iron Man. Not because I fly in a suit of armor or because I fought Thanos. Not because I'm an Avenger or I'm friends with Spider-Man. They call me Iron Man because of the piece of pure carbon inside of my heart that was implanted just under 2 years ago when I had my open heart surgery. Now, just for clarity, 0 out of 5 stars, I do not recommend open heart surgery. Just want to make sure that for the record. When I was 18 years old, I found out that I was born with a bicuspid aortic valve. It's a congenital heart defect that leaks blood back into your heart, thus making it more strenuous for every single pump. Now, since I had this problem, that means ultimately every single day my heart was pumping, I had a potential threat of passing out or dying, frankly. Now, the doctors promised me that I wouldn't have to worry about surgery. I got years ahead of me, as they would say. But the reality is, facing mortality at the age of 18, it changes your perspective. It made me more considerate of the importance of being intentional with our time. Time is the most valuable asset we have, and yet we're so fleeting with it. The reality is we all have this metaphorical hourglass. We all want to believe that the sands of time will be in our favor forever, that all the people we care about and ourselves will live a happily ever after Disney fairy tale life. But after going through any health crisis for yourself, your friends, or your family, you realize this really is just a fairy tale. We don't take enough time to recognize how grateful we need to be for every single moment. And my goal here today is to make sure that you don't have to have open heart surgery or have a loved one fall into a sickness in order to recognize how important your time really is. Now, like I said, the doctors promised me you've got years ahead of you, kid. Your surgery won't be until you're 50 or 60 years old. It was 11 years later. How could they be so wrong? Time is a fickle thing. It's hard to imagine what it looks like in the future. It's hard to predict how your time is going to end up. In fact, the reality is we never know. And the unfortunate reality is that timer will end at some point. So what takes our time? There are so many responsibilities in the world that we live in today that take up our precious time. Our job, our family, our bills, our responsibilities, our television shows, Hulu and Netflix. The responsibilities that we have consistently are taking up our time, whether it is professional or personal. Time is ultimately the great equalizer. It does not matter your socioeconomic status, how much money you make, the number of kids you have, whether it's 0 or 5, what job you have or where you're from, what your hometown is or who your friends are. Everyone has 24 hours in a day. And the more intentional that we are about how we spend our time, the better life we have. This is the lesson that I'm looking to impart upon you today. We hear this lesson all the time. The value of our time. Life is too short. Now, I decided that with my time being so short, I'm going to go with hustle culture. And I bought in fully. I thought since my timeline is now going to be shorter than initially intended, at 18 years old facing mortality, I thought I'm going to focus instead on hustling, on building a legacy. I know a lot of people in here can resonate with this. We work really hard to create something for ourselves, to leave something for our family. And so I did. Here's a picture of me in 2014 when I was doing weekly webinars on Zoom with 30 to 50 students every single Thursday at noon Eastern. I had to have 2 computers set up because one of them were for slides, one of them was for notes, and man, I was burnt out and very stressed. So here's my admission. Hi, I'm Alex Schlinsky, and I'm a workaholic. I was obsessed with David Goggins. You know, the Navy SEAL that runs all the time with his shirt off and yells at you? I was into that big time. Get off your couch and go run. I loved it. I was into it. I also loved Gary Vaynerchuk. The idea of do you hustle? It's inspired me. Side hustle even. It wasn't even enough to have a hustle. You had to have a side hustle to be good at life. And man, I really, really bought into this. I thought this was the epitome of being intentional with your time, especially considering now my hourglass was ticking a lot faster than I initially thought. So because I thought I wasn't necessarily going to make it to 80 or 90 or even 100 years old, I thought I knew for a fact by the time I was 50 years old, I would have to have open heart surgery, and who knows what happens on that day. Statistics would show that obviously the day you have open heart surgery is a much more likely day that you die than any other day. So considering that, I thought, well, I've got to turn the engine on. I've got to go into the red. I've got to hustle my way to this. I got to work harder than other people. And frankly, it created an inappropriate mindset. It created a mindset of competition for myself and other people, that I need to be better than them, that I had to wake up at 5 a.m. to get faster than where they needed to go, that I need to work harder and more than anyone else. So I'd constantly be in the red. I'd constantly be pushing to my limits. Now, I don't want to make it seem like the hustle culture didn't do anything of value to me. It did. The hustle did produce. I was able to create 2 7-figure companies in under a decade, something I'm extremely proud of. One of them is Sky Social Media. Mind my poor logo skills. I was young at the time. Sky Social Media is a personal injury attorney marketing firm. We worked with over 50 attorneys in the United States, helping them run advertising on Google Ads, getting more cases. And after that, about a couple years later, I started Prospecting on Demand, which has been my passion project for my entire life. Prospecting on Demand is a mentorship program for agency owners, coaches, consultants alike. It's a mastermind community. We actually ran our Chicago event. This was our 7th live event last week with 50 people in Chicago that are from all across the world. South Africa, Canada, the United States, Mexico, and everywhere in between. It's incredibly fulfilling to put together a group and a community who care about your mission and want to work hard. But peep the shirts. Those shirts say anti-hustle. Now you might be thinking, why anti-hustle if the hustle is what created this? We'll get there. Now, I didn't think it was enough, right? The 2 businesses that I was successful with was certainly not enough. I needed more because that's what I was told by the hustle culture. I needed a side hustle. And so I decided I'm going to get an opportunity to work with the Miami Dolphins and the UFC. I'm a big sports fan. I've grown up loving the Miami Dolphins since I was a little kid. Yes, you can pity me. I'm also a big UFC fan. And I thought, why don't I create a side hustle that's something I'm passionate about, start working in sports media? And so I did. I got an opportunity to work with a Sports Illustrated affiliate called Fansided. I wrote almost 500 articles for this website in under a year. I also got to work with SB Nation, which is a website owned by Vox, which is pretty incredible, writing for the UFC. I even got to go to events live as media. The question, of course, is why? Why would I do this when I've already created 2 successful companies and I already knew that I was building a legacy I wanted? It was all about being intentional with my time. I wanted a passion project, a side hustle. This was required. It's what the hustle culture told me to do. Now, the thing about becoming a Miami Dolphins media member was I had no sports journalism experience. I didn't go to school to become a media member. I didn't know anything about writing as a sports journalist. I just knew the Miami Dolphins really well, and I knew the UFC really well. Now, my dad, when I was younger, would tell me all the time, you can do anything you set your mind to. But I was that annoying teenager that wanted to argue every single comment. Well, I can't jump off a building and fly. I'm not smart enough to be a neuroscientist. I can't go to NASA. That was the type of attitude I used to have when I was younger, before I found out about my heart defect. So I thought, why don't I listen to my dad for once? And why don't I try to make this happen? And so I did. I emailed thousands of websites, and I got 2 bylines, the ones I just showed you. And then I said, okay, great, I did it. Please get me credentialed. And they said, oh, we don't do that. You have to do that yourself. Oh. So it went online. And I saw the Miami Dolphins media department had the phone numbers. So I did what any normal hustle culture mindset would do, and I just called Jason Jenkins every single day. 2 months straight, I would get the same objection over and over and over by his assistant. Jason's not available today. Jason's at lunch. Jason's with a client. Jason's out on the field. Jason is sick today. Whatever excuse it was, they were continuing to tell it to me. It was a veiled no every time, but I knew something. I was willing to hear no more times than they were willing to say it, because I was never going to stop calling. I was never going to stop calling, and so I didn't. And finally one day, she put me through, and she said, hey, Jason's actually available. Now I've been waiting for this moment for 2 months, and I just realized, holy crap, I'm totally not prepared. Now you know this, right? You got the elevator, like, wait music tone. It's like, do-do-do-do-do. I'm like, oh my God, what do I say? Jason Jenkins, Miami Dolphins, how can I help you? Jason, fan, Dolphins, media, please. All right, Alex, I'll see you on Sunday. I was credentialed just like that. Supposed to be a picture of the credential here, but can't see it. It was a great experience being a Miami Dolphins media member, and I felt so accomplished. I honestly had never felt so accomplished in my life having that media badge, because I created that from nothing. Hustle culture is what created that. But here's the reality. I was super tired. I was burnt out. I was overworked. And even though I was proud of myself, I was shockingly unfulfilled. See, dealing with the heart surgery impending, I had so much anxiety and stress from work and the hustle culture. I had so much anxiety and stress of, will I become a Miami Dolphins media member? It's nice to share this in a packaged talk, but those 2 months where I was calling every day, I didn't know if I was going to make it happen. And every single day that I felt any sort of pain in my chest, I didn't know, is this heartburn? Is this normal pain? Am I going to die today? Can I go play basketball with my friends? Am I going to pass out and wake up in the hospital? I didn't know what was normal because I was not normal. Decades away turned out to be 11 years. Decades away turned out to be 11 years. And ultimately, the irony was I accelerated the heart issues myself. By overworking, I enlarged my heart. When you overwork a muscle, that is what happened. So in December 2019, when they told me, hey, it's time to have intervention, I couldn't fathom it. I didn't understand how it could possibly happen. But it didn't take long to realize that it was the hustle culture that created it. My being so intentional about overworking actually accelerated the problem I was trying to avoid in the first place. And ultimately, I did this all to avoid a life of monotony. I wanted to have a life of excitement, of vitality, because human beings are not built for boring, dull lives. We're here for adventure, for excitement, for spontaneity, and that's what I wanted more than anything. And when they told me in December of 2019 that I had to have the heart surgery, I felt like a failure. I felt like I created this problem for myself, and now, ultimately, I'm going to have to live with the consequences. The only thing I was thinking of when the doctor told me I had this heart problem was, I have so much left to give. I have so much left to give myself, to my family, to my friends, to my clients, to my wife. I don't want to die. I really don't want to die. I was so focused on building a legacy that I wasn't focused on living. I was incorrectly focused on hustle culture instead of on just enjoying the time I had. And frankly, I'm not alone. So many people struggle with work-life balance. There's this idea of people living to work or working to live, and people cannot see the difference between the two. I definitely could not see the difference. So when was the last time you thought about it for yourself? When was the last time you thought, am I living to work or am I working to live? Am I being intentional with my time? Am I choosing to do things that I want in my life? When was the last time you focused on something that fills your cup, that gets you excited, that makes you feel fired up? We procrastinate on things we want to do in favor of things we despise doing because we think we have to. We make excuses that other people are the ones dictating our lives, that our jobs and responsibilities and kids are the ones that dictate our time. We throw away our freedom of choice that we so desperately want more than anything in the world in favor of saying it's easier to blame someone else, to play victim and say it's their problem why I don't have the time. And to that I say BS. It's all about carving time. Now the word carving is a really important metaphor here. The reason I use carving instead of finding is because it's supposed to be painful to find time. Everyone has 24 hours. It's not easy to find time, but it is necessary. You have to make it happen. You have to force yourself to make that time for yourself. And ultimately, this is the biggest challenge of all. We don't know. We don't know how much time we have left. So we constantly procrastinate on the things that we care about to focus on things we don't care about, thinking the time will be there in the future. But I can tell you that it may not be. I don't want that to be the case. You don't want that to be the case. Your loved ones don't want that to be the case. But that is reality. We live in reality. My renewed focus was on rest and relaxation, on meditation, on affirmation, on spending time with my family once I found out that my decades later was going to happen a lot sooner than I thought. Now, we scheduled the actual surgery for March of 2020. Anyone remember what happened in March of 2020? Yes, COVID. So of course, I got a call from the physician's assistant in March 2020 that said, hey Alex, we're gonna have to postpone your surgery. We are not doing any elective procedures at this time. And I exploded. Elective? You think I chose this? I want to have heart surgery? Who said elective? She said, sorry, sir. Elective means any non-emergency surgeries. Non-emergency? They told me I needed to have the surgery now, 4 months ago. Now you're telling me I'm gonna wait again. Am I gonna die? Am I gonna make this? What do you mean non-emergency? Sir, I can't handle this. Click. It wasn't her job to deal with my shit. It's really strange wanting things to be intentionally quick. Like really wanting to spend every single moment, but also wanting to go by so fast you can just get over with the surgery. My dad would say all the time, you'll be on the other side when you wake up. You'll be on the other side. And I just wanted so badly to be on the other side. After 10 months of painstaking delays, I finally had my surgery. But in between that, my wife got pregnant. My wife was 5 months pregnant when I had open heart surgery. And I gotta tell you, man, that raised the stakes quite a bit. The stakes were already raised enough, but it's something else when you have a child on the line. Am I gonna leave my wife a widow? Am I not gonna meet my son? Finally, after 10 months of delays, on October 15th, 2020, I had my open heart surgery. And I made it. Here I am today, alive and well. All's good. On that day, as I was wheeled into the OR, the doctor said, hey, Alex, you ready to go? And I tried to make some wry comment to feel comfortable, but he can see that I was extremely nervous, as understandable, I'm sure. He said, Alex, I promise you're gonna meet your son. And man, that was the most intense comment I'd ever heard in my life. I so badly wanted to meet my son. And I had the amazing opportunity, I wish you could see it because it's a picture of him here. In just 117 days after I had my surgery, my son was born. And it felt like I was born again twice. It was miraculous, it was incredible. I had heart surgery and a brand new valve that was gonna keep me alive, that was gonna make me alive longer than I was gonna stay alive. And I had a brand new child. It was incredible. And I remember holding him so close to my chest, clutching it, and it still hurt so bad, but I didn't care. It was the best hurt I've ever had. Now, I really wanted to be a dad. The reason I wanted to be a dad is actually the reason why I started my company in the first place. It's actually the reason why I built Prospecting on Demand. Because of my dad's own health scare when I was younger. When I was younger, my dad had a stroke when I was 15 years old. Now, his stroke was completely out of the blue, completely unexpected. He had a brain aneurysm, where literally a piece of his brain exploded. He came home one day from work and said, Alex, I can't feel the left side of my body. We need to go to the hospital right now. It was touch and go there for a while. We weren't sure if my dad was gonna make it. My dad was a financial advisor. He had quit his job as a funeral director of 20 years just a few years earlier to start doing a new entrepreneurial journey after being inspired by my mother, who had run an art studio in Aventura, Florida for over 10 years by herself with over 1,000 students. So my dad started this entrepreneurial venture and was incredibly successful. Now, at 15 years old, you don't really understand money, but I can tell you that the cars changed from Nissans to Lexuses, and our trips changed from going to Orlando as a family to now we're driving to flying to Alaska and taking a 7-day cruise. Things had changed. But when my dad got sick, it was pretty evident that my dad hadn't built a business, he had built a freelance company. And so what I had learned when I was 15 years old is if I'm ever going to build an entrepreneurial company myself, I need to make sure I have a team around it. Little did I know I'd be tested myself. Little did I know that just about 15 years later, I would have my own health crisis with stakes so much higher than I ever anticipated. And now I had to be the one to see if my team can handle it. And I got to tell you, they passed with flying colors. I got to have my surgery and my recovery without worrying about my company because my team handled it. And it was amazing. It was amazing to see that being intentional about why I started my company in the first place and being intentional about how I spent my time after my surgery to actually recover and prepare for my son allowed me to have a new life altogether. It allowed me to have a new life altogether. My lesson today is don't wait. We hear this far too often. Life is too short. How many times have you heard this message? We hear it time and time and time again, usually from the older generation. I am 30 years old. I'm turning 31 in September. October 15th will be a 2-year anniversary. My son is 16 months old. I am telling you right now, myself, life is too short. Do not wait anymore. Be intentional with your time. Do things you want to do. Do not make excuses for why you do not have the times for the things you want. So if you want to take a day off of work and spend time with your kids, do it. If you want to watch that movie marathon with your grandson, do it. If you want to take that vacation that you've been procrastinating on, please, for the love of God, do it. Do not wait anymore. Be intentional. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.